So let's start with a quick introduction first. I welcome Magda from Willis Towers Watson. You are a senior director there and InsurTech leader. You have been quite active in observing the, let's say, global commercial insurance developments, and we would like to have hear also your international perspective on what's out there. Welcome.
Thank you. So we'll continue with Christopher, co-founder and managing director of Insurance. Digital advisory suite for commercial insurance in Germany. I mentioned your recent funding round, so congratulations to that one. And you're here to share some real-life insights about what's happening in the commercial market right now in Germany.
Thanks, happy to be here.
And right next to me is Daljeet. He's global head of cyber risks for Tokio Marine and also the head of the European Innovation Labs for Tokio Marine. And so you have two roles. You can
two hats.
Yeah.
One pay, two hats.
And then last but certainly not least, Verena Schmitz, head of non-motor SME business for Allianz. You're going to bring some deep insights also around the German market from a traditional insurer's perspective. Very nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
So we see a lot of movement in the SME market, commercial SME market. A lot of investments coming in. So the question is innovation finally taking off also in this segment? And I would like to hear from Magda first, her perspective based on your experience at Willis Towers Watson. What do you see on a global scale? Is this development something stable? Where do you see the changes in the last years?
So we have been saying that SME is the new growth frontier for 10 years now.
Yeah.
So I always make a comparison. I'm Uruguayan, so I usually say this is like Argentina. They always have great prospects, but they never get there. The SME segment has been a very difficult nut to crack, right? And I think it's not because of lack of digitization, it's because people don't understand digitization in the right way, and we have been digitizing in the wrong places. So if you look at markets like the US, which have some good examples of innovation for that space coming across, or even the UK, they still have struggled to get the type of scale that we envisioned 10 years ago. And the reason is, to digitize commercial lines insurance, you need to digitize contracts. And that's an area that now is taking off, but has taken a very long time to understand. And the other thing you need is to understand that the digital product doesn't need a digital channel. And I think that's something that took a very long time to realize. So people have invested in developing digital channels for SME insurance for a long time. It's a very expensive enterprise to develop a channel that doesn't exist. And it dries up very quickly once you dry up the money around it. So digitizing insurance for SMEs is about digitizing the product in a channel agnostic and product agnostic way. And only now we're seeing that type of acceleration. So the last 3 years have been super exciting because we've seen more underwriting workbenches come to the market, more data aggregation focusing on that, algorithmic trading, algorithmic underwriting for SMEs. And I expect that now we will see more growth because it is channel agnostic and it is combining traditional with digital channels.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Magda, you mentioned growth already. Verena, growth I think is an interesting one. What about Allianz? How relevant is the SME market for you? And do you agree with the developments that Magda has portrayed?
Yeah, so the German SMC market is a very important one for us. So there are 3 million companies in Germany, and 95% of them are actually SMC companies. Yeah? So you see how large and how relevant the market is. And what is the charming thing about it? It is that it's a very diversified kind of business. Yeah. So you have in it, you have hairdressers, you have medical doctors, you have craftsmen, you have clubs, you have associations. It's such a large array of businesses that it's also like a very stable business because it's so diversified. And also, maybe a bit of a different perspective, I think even in 10 years for our agents, but also for brokers, this is something where you will need some sort of personal advice. Mm-hmm. So yes, we have to make it as simple as possible, but I think that for the years to come, you will still need some sort of personal advice, also personal interaction. When you have, for example, like a super severe claim, your house just burned down, yeah? You probably don't want to talk to a machine, but you want to talk to a person during that time. So you have to keep that in mind. But still, we have some sort of protection gap. We've seen it in your numbers, you've presented it. We also see that around 60% of new SMCs, they can't really place what kind of insurance need that they have. So there's a lot of insecurity, a lot of need that they still have. But even though there is still a certain potential, I think we kind of have cracked the nut already. So we have seen very good growth rates at Allianz over the past years. We have a business of over 1 billion euros in premiums that we have in Germany at Allianz. So this is a massive market for us. And it's relevant today, and I'm sure it's relevant tomorrow as well.
Great. So growth already confirmed from your side, and definitely you also highlighted the role of the broker, of the agent, of personal advice here as well, that you believe it's going to continue to stay.
Chris, with ThinkSurance, you already have been around for quite a few years, right? Trying to digitize the interface between insurers, brokers, and SMEs. Where are we actually standing right now? What is your take on the German market? Maybe you can give your insights into that. Is there a chance to really go beyond the basic processes, or is there still a lot of homework to do?
I mean, I guess I'm rather coming from this side. We don't have to go crazy in this market because there's still a lot of basics that we don't manage well yet. Yeah. So when we started our business like 7 years ago, around about-ish, it was still feeling a little bit like Wild West of digitization, going into uncharted territory all the time. And we are really not talking rocket science. We're talking price calculations. We are talking just digital distribution, may it be through a broker or may it be through a platform, but just basic stuff. And we've just seen this coming from, it feels like Stone Age. Yeah. So I have a team of 15 people which are just kind of integrating tariffs into our platform. We built a lot of the tarification systems in our platform ourselves because many insurers won't have an API we can attach to. And if they have APIs, they are all different. So it takes a lot of time and effort and work to really get them connected. And that's, I guess, a little bit the systematic problem that we still have in commercial insurance, because I mean the market, P&C commercial, is much smaller than private, and the complexity is much higher. Yeah, so higher kind of investment need for a smaller market leads, I guess, to some systematic underrepresentation of investment budgets into this market, which leads us to a kind of moment where we are now much farther than back in the days. Yeah, back in the days, I still received letters, like physical letters, telling me the email address of our contact person has changed. Yeah, so I haven't received a letter like that for some time, but this was
so that is gone now, or do you still receive letters?
No, these ones
okay, that's good to hear.
Luckily gone. And I guess where we are today, so I mean, for the last few years, I guess a lot of those, let's say, old offline tariffs have been brought online. But I guess the thing is also that doesn't make them digital products, right? It's just, taking an offline product online doesn't make it digital. Yeah? So I guess insurance, from my perspective, is still one of the few industries which doesn't have a customer-centric process. I mean, just imagine an average commercial customer has like 5 insurances, and if he wants to do it fully digital, he will do 5 checkouts. It's like going to Zalando, and then first you need to buy your trousers, and then come back again, and then you buy your shoes, and then you check out, and then you buy your shirt, and then you check out. Yeah? So this is not customer-centric, this is product-centric, and this is where we are now. And I guess next level would now be kind of really putting the customer back into the center and make process around him and not around the product.
So still a lot of work to do in the field of processes. Okay.
So Daljit, Chris mentioned the Wild West. I really, really like that expression as well. I guess coming from the cyber perspective, I guess cyber was also the Wild West in the beginning, and now we're already talking about getting a cyber policy within 3 pieces of information, automated testing. So can we learn something from how the cyber market has matured for the other business lines as well, or for commercial SME as a whole?
Yeah, no, sure. So if I focus just on cyber insurance, definitely, if we have a timeline of 10 years, then Wild West potentially 10 years ago, but definitely from an SME perspective, it's a roller coaster. So the cyber market 10 years ago was selling directly to large insureds because there was a knowledge gap, an awareness gap for SMEs to buy. So the broker didn't know what they were really selling. It was quite difficult to sell the product. And then insurers kind of really in the value chain pushed down the messaging to help the broker because they were just taking on board large insureds, which from a blended portfolio perspective is not a good idea. Because I also look after accumulation globally for Tokio Marine, so I don't just want large insureds, I want a blended portfolio. So with that in mind, obviously SMEs were approached, and at a time when it was quite a soft market, some of them bought, but again, there's a lot of education awareness required. And then what we had is we had that pivotal moment, probably 2018, 2019, lots of ransomware in the market, uptick in claims. That made it very difficult for SMEs to buy because effectively the tariffs were going up 100%, 200% in some areas. So as part of that, SMEs are now wondering, well, can I afford the product? Two, if I can afford the product, what am I getting for the product? And this is where I think cyber is quite an agile class of business. And as part of that, insurers are really, and brokers as well, are really embracing, well, what are the services can I offer SMEs as part of the product to help them become better at risk awareness, hygiene. That's very important in the cyber market because that then protects the whole value chain up to the reinsurer. Okay, so if the insured is in a better position and not make a claim, everybody benefits. So that's the key thing that I think, and when we were backstage, we were looking at the slides and we could see some of those InsurTechs, some of the tech MGA approaches. A lot of those are offering scanning and continuous improvement, which is very important in the supply chain.
So for me, that really sounds like the insurers went from payer to partner within the cyberspace, really learning from their mistakes, of course, but it's more of a from payer to partner approach. And this is something that we really strongly also, as we stated earlier, brought into the program, this thinking of why don't you build ecosystems around SMEs, providing additional services, making your risk better, but also helping the SME in their growth. And that really sounds like this is something we can learn from the cyberspace.
Yeah, no, cyber, is an innovative class of business. And, maybe only 5 years ago, you still had predominantly specialty lines offering cyber insurance. Now I would say all general insurance offers cyber insurance. So they've realized that there's an opportunity because there is, when we talk about the protection gap, it's more so if cyber is the number one business risk, then there's lots of opportunity globally. And the patterns, if you look at just cyber, the peril, so there's patterns globally that, okay, maturity is threat actors will target US, Europe, not so much Asia. But now, if you look at any of the surveys this year, even from, I think, NTT earlier, then and IBM and people like that, Asia is now being targeted considerably, okay, from a cyber peril perspective. So more and more maturity is required in that region for them to be able to buy as well. So that it's symbiotic. You have to do the awareness and all the things, the hard things that you don't get paid for. You have to do those as an insurer and a broker. And InsurTechs have to do that to enable that then to come to the market.
We just heard from you, Daljeet, brokers also play an important role here, creating awareness. Chris, you also deal a lot with brokers and insurers. And where do you see their role? Are they rather the potential enablers for new digital services or the gatekeepers? What is, where do you see the biggest hurdle? Who do we have to convince to go further beyond to what is just being offered?
So I guess first of all, I'm convinced that the broker is the future of this segment. Yeah? Some of them, Check24, for example, is also a broker, right? So parts of it will go into a really completely digital area, and a lot of the kind of mid-market segment will still be predominantly done by brokers. Yeah? And I guess people ask, why are they working with you, right? Aren't you taking away their, USP or their kind of value creation? And I basically always say, if your USP as a broker is asking the right questions and calculating a price, then rethink your USP, because this is not what it is. We're just trying to kind of keep you back, kind of keep your back office work done. And I guess when looking at
do you see a shift also in there, in the awareness of the brokers that say yes, digital services can be helpful instead of seeing them as a competition?
It's rather a shift also towards it's not an if, it's a when and a how. Because you cannot not do it. I mean, if you just let's quickly see, and commercial can be the hairdresser around the corner, and can also be a hairdressing salon with 100 outlets, right? So it's kind of a big market. So if you roughly look at the micro to small SMEs, so roughly until 2 million revenue, this is a majority of businesses, is rather standard. In this area, you have average premiums of 500 to 2,000. You cannot afford to kind of deal with those people when you do it manually. Yeah? So you have to be digital, and you also have to do it because it is your utmost own interest to kind of keep them, and it's also your responsibility, right? I mean, an average, we've seen statistics on how long is an average commercial contract not touched. And I mean, I guess we talked about, otherwise I would have asked for a guess, but statistically, 7 years a contract is not touched. And in those 7 years, kind of a lot of risks can also happen. A lot of things can change in the business. You need to talk to your people. That's your USP. That's the broker's work. And kind of enabling this goes only if you are tech-enabled. And the second one is also prices. I mean, we see on average for the same kind of risk and also the same insurance services, we see pricing spreads of an average of 250%. So basically you get the same product for 100 or 250 bucks. In a world like that, you need to also be sure that others cannot just easily take away your customers if you don't deal with it. Yeah? So it is paramount. And for the larger brokers, just the last sentence, I mean, they're getting way more professionalized these days. Yeah? So they are consolidating with a lot of PE money. Those organizations grow bigger, their IT budgets grow bigger, and also for them, the larger brokers, it is utmost kind of central part of their strategy to be more digital. So, yes, they have heard it and they are doing it, but still a long way to go.
Okay.
So it sounds a lot like, and I'm going to be a bit like, just bring a counter perspective here. This is a lot about fixing the basics, what it sounds like. Like a contract is not touched for 7 years. We have to think about pricing, the biggest discrepancy in pricing. Magda, towards you, internationally, there's a lot of other things happening. Like let's take Unive that transitioned into being one of the largest energy providers for their SME clients, helping in their sustainable energy transition. So is it a Germany problem? Are we behind? Or is it just you have to do both at once, fix the basics and build the ecosystems?
I don't think it's a Germany problem. We have a similar problem in other parts of the world, including Latin America, and it doesn't relate to the level of development of the industry or the level of development and digitization of the SMEs or the complexity of the risk. I think, Verena was saying we'll always need the human person doing the advice. I agree, but we need augmented advice providers, right? And to augment a decision maker, be it the person itself, or the SME itself in a direct channel, or be it an agent, you have a huge heterogeneity of channels. So agency analytics in Asia, for instance, are a thing. So you can really segment those channels and understand what type of tool do I need to deliver so that I can do bespoke risk analysis at scale in a way that is profitable in the end. Because obviously, with the numbers that Christian just mentioned, it's very difficult to do that at scale in a profitable way if everything is human-based. So there's like 3 components. The first component is you look at the risks, and there's some risks that are very bespoke and others that could be commoditized. I mean, we've seen it at cyber. One of the reasons we're not in the Wild West anymore is because we have 10 years more understanding of the risk, right? So there's part of that risk that we know exactly how they accumulate, how they behave, and that part of the risk you can trade algorithmically. You can price in a more effective way. So that's one part. You modularize the product and the risk so that you take away the complexity where it is due and you deal with the rest of the complexity. So what is the value of the channel and of those ecosystems? To understand the bespoke case that needs a different type of risk assessment. And that's where you bring in the value. So ecosystems happen naturally. If you have a captive audience, like is the case of energy providers, you can add insurance as part of the value, right? And we've seen that with bank, and embedded insurance is very fashionable these days, but it's not new. Banks have been doing it for 30 years, right? The question is, can you, if you're an insurer that are providing a product for SMEs, because the protection gap has only widened in the past 10 years, right? So relevance is going down, not up, although we're digitizing. It's because it's really difficult and fragmented to build those ecosystems. So I mentioned this study to you, right? We did it across countries, and we looked at something like Intuit, or a type of company that will always help SMEs to start. And you get into that inception phase, and it's a very good place to embed your SME insurance. It's really difficult to do that at scale. So you need platforms where you can have products that can customize on local basis, that can adapt to the different level of digitization of all of those communities in a scalable way, but still do that from a platform that has one type of product and that has one type of look at the risk. And there's only a handful of players that are actually doing that today, because otherwise it's really difficult to scale.
Talking about ecosystems, one player that knows how to do it is Amazon, actually. And we just heard that Amazon launched a cyber insurance product for their AWS clients in the United States, for SME clients. And to me, it kind of makes sense, that the tech company has better insights into their clients' risks. I mean, they're the cloud clients of AWS, and so they have a better access to evaluation. Dajit, do you see a big threat here coming towards the traditional insurers by tech companies taking away their business because they have better insights, better data on that?
I don't think it's a real threat. I think it's clearly an opportunity for others to drive forward the opportunity to close the protection gap. That's kind of my focus to this. Tokyo Marine, for example, partnered with Amazon in 2019 in Japan, to offer insurance around SMEs wanting to export goods. So they were offering insurance around that. So there's various ways that people have tried this. The key point for me is around distribution and relationship. So you've got to get that balance, because if you talk about can something be disrupted in cyber insurance, okay, what are the touch points for selling to high net worth individuals or selling to micro business? You could probably do that without a broking network. You could do that through relationship or through other aspects. SME probably still broker. Large clients definitely broker. So because they need more touch points. So Amazon's click and collect, definitely a great approach, because they have that distribution model. And it's whether they then push through, more than likely it'll be small limits, standard coverage. But when you go into some are requiring a tailored coverage, then obviously Magda next to me will be involved in, brokers will be involved in that sort of thing. So, I totally welcome that type of model, because it enables traditional carriers to think more around, embedded insurance. Embedded insurance was bank assurance, So, I remember working in my consulting career around bank assurance. So that's just another distribution model, because a bank has a better customer network, has a better understanding of the needs of their customer network, and can be used to sell other services. Right. So, and if Amazon can offer click and collect of cyber, perfect. Then we'll see other ecosystems come into play.
But then it's only cyber, right? Because what Amazon has an insight on is a certain specific type of risk. And what you want is the SME to being able to also look at the property risk and the liability risk and everything around. And that's where the ecosystem gets more complex, because, not every player had that type of insight.
And I'm going to jump on that because it is related to cyber. So maybe from a perspective of a traditional insurer like Allianz, big name, do you think that Allianz has the credibility to provide additional value-added services, for example, and build an ecosystem around their SME customers? And what does it take to be successful in the SME market?
Yeah, so for insurance, what is most important is trust, right? So the customer gives us money today and hopes that in the future, when something happens, we are there. So, of course, for that, you have to convey trust and you have to fulfill your promise. And I think it applies also for the entire ecosystem. So also to be a trusted partner, this is so important that you build this relationship. So yes, I do think that we can be and should be a partner beyond just the classical insurance products. At the same time, I think that we have to be very critical in what we offer, because everything that we add to this ecosystem has to be of value for the customer. So, for example, we are offering an additional module for sustainability, because sustainability is a very important topic for us at Allianz, and we also want to help our clients in order to be sustainable. And that means when you have a claim, we pay up to 25% extra, up to 25,000 euros, this means, in order for the customer to rebuild their buildings in a sustainable way. So this can mean, for example, you modernize your heating system, you buy a photovoltaic system, you can make your roof greener, etc. So there we really support beyond the traditional insurance product. But then we also see that not everything works. So for example, we have an online seminar for some corporate topics that we offer in addition to our products, and we see very low click rates on that one. And I personally think that we also have to be careful not to overload our customers, because there's such an information overload, and you also have to be careful with that one. So yes, we want to be a partner, but we want to offer things that add value, and it won't be each and every topic, but there will be more and more topics that we should offer beyond just insurance.
Mm-hmm. But always staying very, very close to the risks and also to some value created to the SME, right? With the payout and sustainability, you know exactly what you get back as an SME as well.
Yeah.
You know how it benefits you.
I mean, absolutely, you need some sort of anchor, right? And then you can circle around it, and of course the circles will get wider and wider. Yeah. And to your second question, what do you have to do to be successful in that market? And I think it's actually three things that you have to do. So first of all, you have to be simple. You have to keep in mind that very often these SMCs are run really by the owner. So it's maybe a company with 10 employees, and then the owner on top of every other topic has to do the insurance as well. Yeah? So we have to be as simple as possible in order to make it really easy for our customers. So this is super important, because it's not insurance experts that are at these at the hairdresser, at the craftsman, etc. And that means that we have to be super simple. The second thing that is super important is activation. Yeah? And with that, I mean actually activation of the sales staff. Yeah? So our internal sales staff, but also broker. Because you have to convince them that this is an important business. So for one, you have the sales staff that only goes for the private business, because this is easier. I don't want to do corporate business. No, you have to convince them that our corporate business can be as easy as the private business. And at the same time, you have to actually convince the one who are doing the mid-core business, the large companies, that the tickets are large enough to actually go for them. So from our perspective, we put a lot of work in this activation of our sales teams and the brokers, because it's so important. Yeah, and the last thing that is super important is you have to find the right balance between tailoring to the specific needs and also standardization. So, for example, the hairdresser needs something else than the medical doctor, and you have to keep that in mind when you approach them with an insurance, because you also have to know the topics that they're dealing with on a daily basis. And here, it's super important to really know your customer. But then at the same time, you have to automate and simplify your processes behind. Yeah, and here we have to leverage technology, of course. So we are aiming for a very high straight-through processing rate, for example, in order to make it affordable, in order to keep the cost down, and to make it a good price also that we can offer them. Mm-hmm. So I think these three things are super important, like being simple, activate your sales force, and finding the right balance between tailoring to the specific needs, but also automating it and standardizing it as much as possible.
I think there are some great final statements, and in the interest of time, I'll have to wrap it up here. But what I loved about the discussion, we started with do we have to fix the basics or do we have to build the ecosystems? But in the end, it's really a balance between both. Just see what you can deliver to your customer in terms of value. Do focus on digitizing also the entire distribution process, enabling the brokers, but also look beyond that in what brings value to the SME customer in order to get them as customers and also hold them and keep them happy. Thank you very much to everybody that participated in the panel discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Give applause.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Veronica, Chris, Magda, and Dr.